is Patti Refutation, and today I will be refuting Jessica Mendoza's claim of fact speech. Jessica's major claim was that the use of GMOs has a strong negative effect on society. She had three secondary claims. One, GMOs negatively affect the planet. Two, farmers are negatively impacted. And three, GMOs have a low standards of regulation. I'd like to discuss with you today how GMOs have a positive effect on society. The advocate's first secondary claim, GMOs have a negative effect on the planet, I'm going to counter that by saying that GMOs do have a positive effect on the planet. One thing that the advocate started off by saying was that crossbreeding leads to extinction of natural predators. However, she doesn't offer any evidence as to how and what predators and how that happens. So I'm unsure how that defends her claim. She also said that GMOs lead to higher pesticide use when in fact GMOs lead to a reduction in pesticide use. Multiple studies have been done to show this. The one I'm talking about is one at the Dutch Center for Agriculture and Environment. They studied the effects on pesticides in soybeans, soybeans that are GMO and soybeans that are not. And the results were that the GM soybeans actually needed 10% less pesticide to work. And a study by Dr. Martin Kaim at the George Argus University in Germany showed that GM technology reduces pesticide use by 30% over a variety of crops. Those crops include corn, soybeans, cotton, and a variety of other things. The advocate's second secondary claim is that farmers are negatively affected. Actually, GMOs benefit farmers quite a bit. GMOs lead to a higher crop yield, and that's going to benefit a farmer regardless. A UK study published a 15-year study on the effects of GMOs, and in 2011, the global farm income benefit from GM crops was $19.8 billion compared to non-GM crops. And in just the corn sector, the maize sector alone, the value of GM maize crops increased by 6.8% in 2011, equaling $7.1 billion. The advocate also discusses a lawsuit between a small farmer versus Monsanto. It appears to have little effect or correlation with GMOs specifically. She said that Monsanto bullies farmers. However, the lawsuit was because the farmer had Monsanto seeds in his farms. So it's unclear if GMOs really were a big part of the lawsuit. I believe that even if it was the seeds of Monsanto who didn't use GMOs, they would have sued regardless. So I don't really see the relevance in how that backs up her argument because Monsanto is a large company and would pursue a smaller farm regardless of GMO involvement. The advocate's third secondary claim is that GMOs have low standards of regulation. Dr. Ray Dobert of Monsanto's regulatory department actually did an article on the process of GMOs and coming to the market and the shelves. And he said that most GMOs actually take about 13 years of testing before they even hit the market, before it's even available to a consumer. And the regulatory process alone can take 5 to 7 years, an average of 5 to 7 years. So GMOs are rigorously regulated and tested before hitting the market. The advocate also discusses the concept of substantial equivalence, and a direct quote from the advocate's speech was, "Pretty much there doesn't really have to be any scientific research claiming a food to be safe as long as it's considered substantially equivalent." According to the FDA and Monsanto and my own personal research on substantial equivalence, the entire basis of substantial equivalence is done through scientific testing. There's no way to ensure that a crop is equal in nutritional value and components of its naturally occurring counterpart without scientific testing and scientific evidence. The advocate further claims that non-labeling of GM foods is low regulation. It would seem that the advocate should define regulation because labeling is not required of GMOs currently, so it doesn't need to be regulated. The labeling of GMOs doesn't need to be regulated if it's not necessary, not a law. The labeling of GMOs is unnecessary in itself because it would lead to a misconception that GMOs are unsafe. But studies and testing and the constant changing of regulation and the developing of GMOs and putting new products on the market show that the products that are available to us right now are safe for consumption. And labeling them would lead to a misconception that they aren't safe. So to conclude, I believe that GMOs have a positive effect on the planet, society, and farmers. Thank you.
Second.
All right, you have counterclaims built into most of your argument, and most of the proof for your counterclaims is nicely developed. You've got good evidence on all of those points. Some of the points, I think, are not necessarily as direct as they could be. The one that seems to me to be the most problematic, although it seems like it's the smallest issue, concerns the lawsuits with Monsanto and the farmers. You kind of dismiss that out of hand and suggest that would happen anyway. I'm not sure why it would happen anyway if the basis of the lawsuit is this cross-contamination issue. That seems like it would still likely occur. But when we're talking about the counterclaim on what the benefits are on that particular point, you've got some significant financial benefits that you document, 19.8 billion, 7 billion on a particular product. I thought that that was a very reasonable answer on that, and that the farmers are the ones who benefit from that in the long run. That seems to make some sense. On the first point, you do the same sort of thing. We've got some good statistical information on the decreased use of pesticides. You claim that the advocate's argument really didn't provide evidence about this particular situation. Pardon me. And then you present a couple of good pieces of information to suggest the contrary conclusion on that. I think that's reasonable. And then on the third point, I jumped around a little bit here. I like the fact that you've got information about how long it takes to get something to the market, how long it takes to be evaluated by the system, and there is some information, although I didn't hear the data on this, I didn't hear the quote or the rule or the regulation that says substantial equivalence requires the scientific testing. I assume that you probably have described that accurately, but your source citation on this point is not as clear as it was on everything else. The argument about regulatory issues and labeling, I thought, was reasonably well explained. It's probably its own issue, but you had an okay answer to it. So, and I thought you had a very good summary and a statement of what your position was. Thank you.